center in the life of a priest and a religious has to be the relationship with God. If the relationship with God is not there, even with the best intentions, I think that in most cases eventually the priesthood or the ministries can be fruitful, because it's Jesus who has to be central, it's God that has to be central in every aspect of what we do. And the only way we can get close to God if we spend time. It's like any friendship. If we don't spend time with somebody, if we don't visit them, if we don't talk to them, they could be the best friends, but over time the friendship is going to water down and we're going to lose contact. And with God it's exactly the same. God is always there waiting for us. He's always knocking on the door. He's always waiting for us to respond to Him. But we need to respond to His invitations. We need to respond to His invitation of communion with Him. So the most important thing is that we make time for prayer. When I choose to be, I applied to be a Dominican, one of the things I really discovered in my first year, which is the novitiate, is that if we pray, if we contemplate, if we study, if we deepen our understanding for God, that is really going to help us to be fruitful in our ministries. I suppose it is the Dominican way of life. It is to contemplation and to study, that it is the fruit of this contemplation and study and our knowledge of God that we preach to others, that we try to bring to those who might not know God, to find them and to talk with them and to share our own relationship with God with them. And that is exactly because it is our own experiences, because it's our own closeness to God. It is how the Spirit works in us once we open ourselves up to Him, that is really going to make a difference. So as any person, but especially if we are ministering directly for Christ as our vocation, we need to have a very intimate relationship with God. And once we have this relationship with God, then this ministry will be fruitful, because God will be in it. Once we know that God is with us, we know how He communicates with us. For most people, not in words, or not in voices, not in signs, or not in visions, but in the quiet promptings of our hearts, which we can only perceive really when we quiet ourselves down and being able to listen. So that is why it is central that prayer is always the center point in our lives. That is why the Church asks religious and priests to pray the divine office, to pray with the Church in communion, and sometimes the office, officium in Latin, is duty. Sometimes it's a duty, but it helps us to sanctify our days, to have times of prayers together in communion, if we are in communities together praying, or in communion with the Church as a whole, to pray together, to sanctify our day, and then to be able to allow God to come into our days and to help us to make us fruitful. To have the time of silence, the time of listening to the voice of God deep in our hearts, or to Him speaking to the Scriptures in our lives, and to allow Him to have the direction, to give us the direction which we need. Without prayer, it becomes our own human undertaking, but it will be an undertaking that is built on sand and not on rock. And so often in my own life, I have discovered that once I get too busy, once I think I can do it myself and prayer becomes put aside because there's so much work to be done, I realize that it isn't really with God that, it isn't really God that is in it. And all the things I do, I put a lot of effort in, and the results are very little. But once we put God at the center of what we do, it might seem that we don't have that much time, but what we do works much better because it is God who actually does the work. So prayer in everybody's life, but especially in the life of priests and of religious, has to be central in order for it to be fruitful, in order for God to work in us and through us in only a way that God can do.